Welcome to AI for Founders. I'm Ryan Estes. It's late December energy. The year's basically over, the cookies are gone, the group chats are quiet, and this is the one moment where you're allowed to stop shipping long enough to look back. Because 2025 was insane for AI. Every week felt like a new launch, a new model, a new panic, a new promise that this one would change everything. Faster code, cheaper labor, smarter agents, louder fear, and somewhere in the middle of all that noise, a lot of founders quietly fell behind without realizing it. That's why this moment matters, not to chase headlines, but to understand what actually shifted. Aroussi has been building software for 30 years, and what he's seeing isn't hype, it's pressure. In 2025, delivery timelines got cut in half. Clients didn't ask for less, they asked for more, faster. AI didn't end projects early, it turned the same teams into factories. MVPs shipped sooner, and instead of stopping, they kept going. More features, better architecture, automated workflows, less "we'll clean this up later." Here's the part that founders miss. The advantage isn't the model, it's the system around it. If your onboarding breaks at scale, if your backend can't handle growth, or if your workflows still assume humans for everything repetitive, AI just exposes the weaknesses faster. That's where teams like Automaze step in, acting like a technical co-founder rebuilding foundations while AI quietly takes over the expensive, soul-crushing work you assumed required more headcount. And looking ahead to 2026, the big question isn't capability, it's trust. Agents can already do more than we're comfortable admitting. The real winners will be the founders who learn how to delegate to AI without surrendering judgment. Co-pilots turn into co-workers, systems get quieter, interfaces disappear, output goes up, and the margin between leaders and laggards gets brutal. So here's the question worth sitting with. If your company doubled its output overnight, would it give you freedom, or would it just raise expectations to tighten the leash? If you're a founder, operator, or builder trying to make sense of what actually mattered in 2025 and how to position yourself for 2026, you're in the right place. This is about tools, infrastructure, leverage, and the uncomfortable truths hiding behind the headlines. If you want to keep thinking this way, go to aiforfounders.co. It's the newsletter I send when something actually changes. Not the hype, not the noise, just what works. And if the show helps you see the game more clearly, leave a review for somebody like you. And one last thing, if you're building something real and no one knows about it yet, that's not a product, that's a problem. It's an attention problem. Kitcaster helps founders turn podcast guesting into a repeatable growth channel by getting you on shows your customers already trust. We handle the strategy, the pitching, the booking, and the prep. You show up and tell your story. One great interview can turn into pipeline partnerships and long-term visibility. If you're ready to be heard, Kitcaster is how you do it. That's kitcaster.com by Moburst. All right, Rand, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Absolutely my pleasure. Really excited for this conversation. So we talked a little bit beforehand. We're going to do kind of a recap of the big stories in 2025 in AI. There were a lot of big stories. I mean, It just seemed like every week was a major launch, major headline news. So we've got a lot of ground to cover there. And then maybe we'll get to kind of what we're looking forward to in 2026 and kind of new year, new me energy. But to kind of kick things off, Ran, give us an introduction to you and to your work.
Right. So I've been in the programming, marketing, entrepreneurship space for the better part of the past 30 years. I started very, very, very young, and that was always been my passion, doing code work. I'm a tinker, so that kind of led me to open source. I like to view the source of what's happening under the hood and therefore also contribute. Over the past number of years, I've been running a company called Automaze, you see here on a t-shirt. And we're providing a CTO and kind of technical co-founder as a service type of thing. We work with companies around the world and providing development, consultancy, architecture, guidance. And obviously, lots of AI over the past year or so. And I've As I mentioned, I'm an open source contributor. I have created libraries for market data in the finance space called Y Finance, if anyone here heard of it. And overall, yeah, my open source code is enjoying about 20 million downloads every month. So I'm quite proud of that. And look forward to having this conversation.
Yeah, 100%. So kind of in the consulting work, how did kind of the project requirements and kind of what people were looking for in the beginning of the year, let's say last January, kind of evolved through the year?
Yeah, definitely. So the way that we work in general is kind of we don't do kind of a one-off projects. We work with our clients long term. And I would say that if a year or so ago, when we were onboarding a new client, it was all about let's build something from scratch or completely revamp an older legacy system. I would say that these days, the expectation is that with AI, everyone expects us to deliver more, which we are. So there's definitely this type of expectation from clients from something that was very reasonable to take 3-4 months a year or so ago. The expectation now is for it to take at most half of that time. So that's been kind of at least we to be honest, we weren't kind of sure how to look at it. So what we were going to have less clients because they're expecting us to finish the job faster. But what had happened is that we just ship more. It's not like we're ending contracts any sooner. We just ship more. We're finish up with MVPs a lot sooner and go continue with developing more features and enhancing internal processes. And so from our perspective, we work the same. We just produce a lot more with the help of AI.
I know. That's what the goal was like, hey, we can 10x our workflow so we get all this time off. But it just turns out we just ship more and work.
Exactly.
I love it.
Exactly cool. Right.
This episode is brought to you by Moburst, the AI-first growth engine trusted by iconic startups like Calm, Robinhood, Reddit, Uber, and Google. Moburst is a digital full-service mobile-first marketing agency that helps companies to scale and become category leaders. Whether you're finding product market fit or ready to accelerate growth, Moburst delivers creative, data-driven solutions that help with scale and efficiency and impact. At Moburst, we're not just guessing what works, we're predicting it. As an AI-first agency, Moburst uses cutting-edge tools to analyze user behavior, adapt creative in real time, and uncover hidden growth opportunities. The result, marketing that's faster, smarter, and built to convert. From early-stage startups to global brands, we've helped hundreds of companies overcome complex challenges, unlock new audiences, and optimize every metric that matters. At Moburst, we believe that creative thinking, advanced technology, and data are the core drivers of success at scale. If you're serious about scaling your business with precision and purpose, it's time to talk to Moburst. Visit moburst.com and let's build something category-defining together. Okay, I've got a confession. As a podcaster and founder, I'm constantly meeting incredible people, guests, listeners, or other entrepreneurs. But here's my little secret. I'm terrible at following up. My inbox is basically a graveyard of missed opportunities. Does that sound like you? You meet someone amazing, exchange emails, have great intentions, and then life happens. 6 months later, you're kicking yourself thinking, I should have stayed in touch with that person. This is exactly why I started using warmstart.ai. And honestly, it's transformed how I think about my network. Instead of letting relationships go cold, Warmstart analyzes my existing contacts and helps me identify who I should be reaching out to and why. It even writes the outreach messages for me. But here's the key. I review everything before it goes out. I'm not just talking about this because they're a sponsor. I'm talking about it because watching a healthcare executive use this to build his entire advisory board in one weekend with 4 CEO signups made me realize I was leaving money on the table every single day. Your network is your net worth, but only if you actually nurture it. Check out warmstart.ai, use code AIFF to get $50 off your first month. Stop letting your relationships turn into missed revenue. And so as a fractional kind of CTO, talk about the teams you work with. Am I safe to assume these are kind of designers, biz ops people, maybe investors that are like, hey, we need somebody to ship something, so we're calling Ran. Is that kind of how it worked mostly?
Well, we have I would say two main types of clients. Ones are that either have their own business already running. That was actually our first customer that we still work to this day with. They had kind of growing pains. They had good problems. More and more users were signing up, but the server and architecture just couldn't handle it. So they had to bring in someone with more experience and a good quality team to kind of take a look at their existing architecture and see how it can be improved. So I would say that belonged to type one of customers, existing businesses, digital businesses, and they're looking to fix what's not working or convert their existing application into something that can scale. On the other end of the spectrum, we have founders that are just starting off with projects. So we're building the MVPs for them. We're helping them kind of decide what the product would be, what's reasonable to have in an MVP, what's reasonable to have in a V1, etc. And in that type of environment, you can see that, or that type of client, it completely varies. So we work with anything from founders of dating apps to casual gaming, through health clinics and insurance companies. So it's really all over the place, and yeah, definitely over the past year or so, it's been heavily inspired by what AI could bring to the table. So we completely automated processes with insurance companies and clinics, things that I wouldn't say were impossible before, would have been very expensive, that the project wouldn't have taken off or wouldn't even started.
Totally. Yeah, I would say one feature of 2025 was really the rise of AI augmented programming tools. The leaps and bounds and improvements this year. So I'd love to hear about your tech stack. One, what are you using LLMs for and which ones? And then what is kind of your favorite programming tool? Are you a Cursor guy? You a Claude Code guy?
I'm a Droid guy, actually. I've been using Factory AI's Droid heavily over the past few months. Kind of switched from about a year ago from Cursor to Claude Code when it came out, and I've noticed better results from Droid using the same model. So I'm using Opus 4.5 as the LLM with the agentic kind of wrapper, if you wanted to call it that way, of Droid. They seem to have a better memory after a compression. So after they compress the session, they have better memory and as to what we were working on. So I kind of like that. As I mentioned, I started like 30 years ago, so it's very amusing to me that we are kind of went full circle back to the terminal. And I'm feeling right at home there. This is where I started. So it's very nice to be in that environment again. But yeah, I would say that agentic-wise, that's Droid with Opus. But in general, tech stack, obviously it depends on what the project is, but my go-to would be kind of a hybrid of Go, Python, and JavaScript with databases. It's Postgres, ClickHouse. These are kind of my go-tos. But obviously everything is based on what the project requires. We're not going to over-bloat a project unnecessarily or under-deliver unnecessarily. So it really is a custom tailor fit per project.
Amazing. And I am an amateur programmer. So when you talk about returning to the terminal, what do you mean?
So those black screens where everything happens, kind of the Unix style of coding, um,
Monochromatic.
monochromatic. Yeah. Well, now they have colors, but it's still the same environment. It was always kind of a favorite place for me to code. And it's also the most efficient. It almost no memory consumption, no CPU consumption. So it was always nice to be in that environment again. But yeah, Windows users probably know this. Remember that as the DOS, the old DOS operating system, and the PowerShell. Mac users and Linux users knows it as the terminal. But yeah, that's basically where the matrix happens. So yeah,
Amazing.
yeah, that's basically it.
Cool. Okay. So I've got a series of big stories this year, and I'm going to throw them at you and just kind of get your take. We're right now, it's what, December 23rd? We're getting
Yep.
ready for Christmas. Everyone's kind of hibernating. It's my favorite time of the year. You eat too many cookies, you take a nap, you wake up, you watch football, you crack a beer, you go back to bed. It's wonderful.
Yeah,
So
laid back times. Yeah.
it's a good time to reflect. Obviously, we're coming into the new year, setting new goals. Q1 is upon us. So let's kind of reflect on 2025. And I will start with a question, or not a question, but just the rise of Chinese AI breakthroughs. I think American supremacy in technology hasn't really been tested since maybe the space race. We've
Right.
basically led the way. And this year in particular with Manus and some other tools, China's really stepped up. If you just look at the videos on YouTube of their robotics and their drone
Yep.
technology, they seem to have surpassed the United States in certain kind of ways. And I'll include Europe in that as well, basically the West. So kind of what do you see
Yep.
as the
Well, Europe
implications?
is sleeping, but yeah.
Yeah. What do you see the implications of a strong and mighty Chinese techno reality?
Uh, I mean, that's. I always take what I see coming out of China with a grain of salt. That being said, assuming that it's 70% true, it's amazing of their achievements. And I think the main reason that they've been able to really challenge the US and the West in that regard is that they see it as a national security or a national priority, and they're kind of putting all their chips, including some chips that should go on improving the welfare of their citizens. But I mean, that being said, you see the models that are coming out, you see the robotics that are coming out. On one hand, it's not very surprising that they are able to achieve that. They've been, the factory of the world for the past 20, 30 years. So they definitely have the technology, the know-how, the extremely talented and smart people. So it's not like anyone should be surprised by that. But I think that there, to me, the most surprising thing is their approach that all the LLM models that we're seeing coming out of China, they're all open source. So that to me, the most surprising thing. And that might be their edge going into 2026. Because, open source, none of the technologies that we have today would have been here without open source contributors, and it's just a scientific method. You have thousands of people looking at your code and trying to hack it and improve it, and finding security flaws or just ways of optimizing it. So I really think that that's going to be their edge, and the fact that from the US at the very moment, only Meta has an open source model. That's kind of that. I think that that's going to be an issue.
Yeah. It's interesting that the Meta's kind of AI has kind of fallen off a little bit. They haven't had a big announcement in some time, especially because it is open source. So when you're thinking about, but I wouldn't count Zuckerberg out.
No.
So, when you're thinking about like Edge with open source, ultimately it's just like adoption, right? Like if people are going to want to use an open source framework.
Right. For multiple reasons. One, they want to know exactly how it works. They want to try to improve it. They may need a smaller version of it that they can hack and run on a phone. Or they can just buy a $10,000 PC and run the LLM at home without paying monthly fees. So there's various reasons why people would want to use an open source model. And I mean, the American companies obviously get it because you see that their entire focus is on getting developers on board. So it's not like they're blind to the fact that whoever kind of owns quote unquote developers will own the market, but they're kind of missing it with not going open source, or at least open source your previous model. It's fine, just open source Claude 3.5 or GPT 4. Just at least give the open source community something to work on.
Yeah. Did you see the videos of the Chinese robots that they taught karate to?
And I've seen some of them as backup dancers to like a band as well. It's quite cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. I
Kind of
love them
creepy. I
dancing.
know I have mixed feelings, like all of us, I guess. It's cool and creepy at the same time.
Yeah, they can't be teaching them martial arts. Like, what are we doing? Like, do not teach them martial arts. It's a terrible idea,
Yep.
for a lot of reasons. But it's really cool to see them, And I saw the backup dancer video, and I'm contemplating seriously like doing like a robot clothing line. And the first thing I noticed was the outfits for the robots were terrible. I was like, dude, this is going to take off. So you get, whenever Elon rolls out his robot army, that might become kind of the standardized size and shape. I think that's when
and you'll have probably like 3-4 sizes, so it's going to be easy adjustments.
Yeah, give them little outfits. Why not? I think it'd be cool. So the rise of China.
It's probably going to be army uniforms first. That's my suspicion.
Yeah, if they start launching these things and they're camouflage, and you know what I mean, it'd be like, we're over. And we'll get to that because I think that kind of AI deployment in government and military is a really interesting question. But I want to stick on kind of China for a second, largely about their ability to move quickly because it's a national issue. And really, there's only one source of truth. You kind of mentioned that Europe is kind of asleep a little bit with technology innovation, and a lot of that really has to do with regulation and compliance that's more heartily enforced in Europe. But, the United States, particularly California, had legislation that was passed for AI transparency, requiring risk disclosure, safety frameworks. Basically, they're putting roadblocks in to slow us down. So when we're looking at this race, some people warn that we're running headlong into our own destruction, to be really on the outside of the mean and the doomsayers.
Yeah.
But at this point, it looks like there really can't be any slowing down because it's another arms race, whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
So kind of what's your take on like maybe the Europe's approach to regulation and maybe what the United States should start to be thinking about?
Well, definitely not what Europe is doing. So that's definitely not what the US should be thinking about. I mean, there are obviously a lot of talented people in Europe. It's not like the continent is cursed or something, but the overregulation kind of hinders entrepreneurship and creativity. And the one thing that's great about the US, you start with a yes almost everywhere you go, and let's see how we can work this out. As opposed to Europe, that you start with a no and you need to see how you can navigate that maze of bureaucracy. But regarding the California thing, I'm okay with disclosure. Disclosure is fine. No one's against the privacy policy, but the problem is when a privacy policy becomes like a giant pop-up that tells you that we're using cookies, like it's a surprise. So that's where it really becomes a roadblock. I think, as you rightly mentioned, that it is an arms race, and it's not necessarily an arms race between the US and China, but it's literally West versus East, I guess. And this is how the US needs to look at it. And it seems, again, I'm not too heavily involved in US politics, but it seems like recently the administration came out with kind of an AI a policy that they're seeing it as a national emergency or something like that. It seems like someone's at the top kind of understands that. On the other hand, you probably don't want to say, if you are an AI company, you pay no taxes. So you need to find kind of the balance between what will give a lot of entrepreneurs kind of the desire to go and innovate and not be stopped by regulation. Something also, and I should also probably mention that something needs to be done in order to open the door for smaller startups.
Yeah.
I don't know how. I really don't have the answer, because just lifting a regulation won't just give them tens of billions of dollars to invest in infrastructure. Yeah, that's the fact that you need that much capital to create a new model. Yeah, it's an issue that I don't think a government can solve. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, ByteDance alone has capital commitments in 2025 of 23 billion. And
It's insane.
it's just them. So, a lot of this regulation has come from, Sam Altman and the Elons, where all of them want to basically scare everybody to create a regulatory moat and be like, hey, everyone should be really afraid of these AI companies. The government should just trust us. And we should have, total domination in this market. And so, a lot of that, like, AI will take our jobs, kind of came from that hysteria. But what they're doing really is just playing to the fear tactics in order to try and get some regulations securing their position as number one, which just sucks, honestly. And hopefully in 2026, people will start to see beyond that. Now, I think as far as innovation on, commercial or whatever kind of means, like, we really have to, like, remove that regulation, my personal opinion, so that we can keep pace. If there's some way that startups can compete, maybe there should be some, like, $20 billion endowment to
Yeah.
startups to help them
That's
out.
one way of doing that. Yeah. Or if you're a monopoly, you have to give 10% of your TPU powers to startups, or something can be arranged along those lines. By the way, I suspect that part of the reason why the Chinese models are open source is to increase trust in companies in the US to use those models.
Yeah.
So you'll at least have the ability, in theory, to take a look, take a peek inside and see that whether or not you're being spied on.
Yeah, 100%. And, and maybe this is a place where we need kind of unilateral, China cooperation for certain kind of regulations that I think will put a lot of people at ease. People are afraid of using Manus, but they're happy to go on TikTok. So, you can't tell public opinion. But when we're talking about AI adoption for warfare, I think there needs to be some kind of, like, summit, and maybe Trump's the guy to get Xi Jinping in and, like, to the table to say, like, hey, look, we don't want, a cloud of drones flying over a town and eliminating anybody who doesn't have 10,000 YouTube subscribers or whatever kind of weird AI qualification they can take. I think that kind of Black Mirror episode is what nobody wants. We don't want the Kung Fu robots knocking on our door and saying, hey, we're looking for Rand because he's using the open source competitor of our rivals,
Right.
And I haven't seen a lot of that talk. There's posturing over Taiwan, there's posturing on all over the place, but really a place just to come together and be like, hey, let's have closed doors talks about, like, where we're not going to go with AI because it's too threatening and too scary.
Well, I agree with you. I just don't think it's ever going to happen. Even if they have this kind of summit and agreements, each country will just serve its own interests behind the scenes. So, realistically speaking, I just don't see it happening. Sadly, it would be great if everybody could agree on this is this is ethical, isn't ethical, but different cultures have their own moral barometers. So I don't see this happening. If you look at, you mentioned you don't want robots coming at your door. One of the things that kind of concerning is, on the one hand, if you go to like a battle in an open field, robots versus robots, I don't see the point in that. I mean, my robots are better than your robots. I mean, I don't. There's really not much sense in that. But once they get where the citizens are, and I guess I'm more concerned about the AI rather than I am of Terminators walking around. Although when we get to that level, maybe I'll be scared of them as well. Yeah, AI, the main issue with it that we all should be concerned of is that it's a non-deterministic software. You really cannot predict in certainty what it's going to do, giving a set of parameters. And the more advanced it gets and the more life experience it gains just from being an aging model, it's less and less deterministic. So unlike software, where you can say, oh, I know that if the software sees, I don't know, this many drones in the sky, it's going to launch a missile. You don't know that the AI will make the same decision. So that's the tricky part. I mean, there's some probabilities that you can guess that it's going to do this or that, but unlike software, it's not a workflow with a set number of steps.
Yeah, that's a major problem. And I guess the workaround they've had is just kind of the model releases, because that's also been a major story this year. Is every couple of weeks, OpenAI takes a step forward, and then Google brings something with Gemini, and then Anthropic jumps up here, and then Claude's jumping up here. All of the model releases have been like huge leaps. I mean, like huge leaps. But we're starting to see those gaps kind of narrow. Do you think that's because the models themselves are starting to deteriorate, or do you think we're kind of starting to hit a wall, so to speak, of like what they're capable of?
Um, I wouldn't necessarily say that we're starting to hit a wall. I mean, obviously, once we get to 100% software engineer benchmarks, then yeah, that you cannot get better than that. But we're still far away from this point, and I think that we're going to see the differences kind of becoming smaller and smaller between the different models. And very funny to me to see on X people saying, I just canceled my Claude subscription because Gemini is amazing. And 3 days later, I just canceled my Gemini subscription because ChatGPT has the best model. And just, I'm not going to switch a model I'm comfortable with because of 0.5% improvement. It's just not going to be the case. I am playing around with all the models. I'm subscribed to all of them, sadly for my wallet. Yeah. But yeah, at the end of the day, you have your go-tos. Yeah. So going back to the actual question, if we're going to hit some sort of a wall, I don't think so. Not in the next, I would say, 2 years. But the exponent is going to slow.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, and let's talk a little bit about the major players in the LLMs, in the business models. because this is also kind of a sustainability kind of uh, capability. So you have, the grandfather of them all, OpenAI, that's raised unbelievable cash, and Sam's looking to raise more at some diabolical evaluation of his company.
Yeah.
But, there's also pressing litigation and lawsuits as far as like what they've trained their data on and what kind of liability and what kind of money they're going to have to pay for that. And we can probably safely assume they've already digested the entire internet 10 times over.
Yeah.
And so
But
everybody
that's solvable. They can just have them pay money. That's an easy problem to fix.
You bet. They'll pay off everybody, but then at the end of the day, all the money, all the valuation, they're not going to be able to, survive on $20 monthly subscriptions. And
No.
if we're thinking about, if we have settlements in these lawsuits of like for data and information moving forward, then they're at a very big disadvantage to say Grok or to Google, obviously. Even to Apple. Apple doesn't want to do any kind of like open LLMs, but between Apple, Google, Amazon, they have mountains of cash, that ultimately they're going to need to deploy. And why not deploy it in this way? So when you're looking kind of as business models, it's hard to bet against Google right now. But what's your take? Where do you see kind of the big LLM companies kind of panning out of for supremacy?
Well, financially, and it's a very hot take, I guess, I think that OpenAI is the one at the most disadvantage here. Yeah, pretty much. Obviously, I'm long Google. The fact that they've first they own, I think, like 10% of Anthropic, and so they have some hand in that as well. The fact that they went with a really Apple-y type of move here, where they own the entire chain. They have their TPUs, they have their data, they have their distribution. They control everything. So they are in the best position possible moving forward. Someone there was smart enough to say, you know what, we need to make our LLM have the same API as OpenAI, just to make it easier for adoption. Because it was really horrible before that. Google is known for having bad APIs with their systems, but someone who's smart enough to say, not in this case, we're just gonna be OpenAI compatible because that's what developers are already using. So Google definitely is above anyone else here. Regarding Amazon, I'm not even sure that they are going to play the LLM game. I think they're just, at least it seems that they are saying, we're going to be the infra. We have Bedrock, just bring your models, and we're going to be the marketplace. Anthropic is kind of the favorite amongst developers, which positions them in probably the best position moving forward in terms of adoption and usage within software. And just the fact that they are the favorites among developers while being 20 times more expensive than Gemini, or 4 or 5 times more expensive than GPT, just tells you how good their models are. People wouldn't just volunteer to pay 20 times what they can get from Google. So GPTs when OpenAI, despite the fact that they were here first and they have amazing models, it's not like they are behind on a technological aspect at all. It's just financially, I think that they're least independent. Even their deals is NVIDIA is investing in OpenAI. They need to use that money to buy chips from NVIDIA. Same kind of deal with Amazon. Amazon is now investing, and they're going to give that investment as AWS credits. So it's all kind of just money moving around. It's not like money going into the company's pockets. And Apple, I don't know what Apple is doing. I hope they're going to surprise everyone, but I have no idea what they're doing.
Man, Siri is still so dumb. I mean, I got in an argument with Siri the other day. I was like, it forgot a name. I was like, I said like my cousin's name, and it's like, I don't
Yeah.
have that contact. I was like, since when? You've had it for 4 years. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
And,
Okay, cool.
and Alexa as well. I mean,
Oh my
he's
gosh.
just talking to an idiot. And it was a technological marvel a few years ago,
Yeah,
and now he's just, oh my God, you're so stupid.
I
Uh,
know.
yeah.
Would you like to subscribe to dog food? It's like, Alexa, I don't have a dog. Like, what are
You
you
should know that, Amazon.
Exactly. Okay, cool. I want to kind of talk about big questions coming into 2026.
Yep.
New year, new me, new AI, new where are we going? So one thing I wanted to bring up is, this summer, everybody shipped AI agents. And now kind of the job reports are coming back that very few actually replace jobs. So do agents in 2026 become autonomous coworkers or do they remain kind of powerful co-pilots?
Wow, that's an interesting one. Um, I think that they're gonna become powerful co-workers towards
Yeah.
the second half of the year. As they first, you need to build a trust. Even if they're already there in terms of capabilities, the trust is not there that they're gonna complete the job. But as more and more companies will start using these agents and see that they're actually delivering on the promise, I think that they will become very capable coworkers. I'm not subscribed to this whole fear mongering of AI is going to take our jobs. I think AI is definitely going to change the way we work, but I don't think that is going to take anyone's job. If you account for some minor pivoting within your job role, then you're probably gonna keep your job. I used to think like early in the year, oh, the junior developers are kind of screwed because why would anyone hire a junior developer when they can just give a senior developer another $1,000 a month in AI tools and they can output a lot more. But I since changed my mind. We hire a lot of junior developers in Automaze as well, and we take them to a training program. And we use AI to actually make them senior developers much faster. Obviously, there's earned knowledge that you need to just be around for a while and experience things. But the teachable knowledge, the teachable experience, that can extremely be accelerated with AI. And if you don't hire juniors, you end up with no senior developers. They're not just fresh up out of college. You get senior developers. You have to have the juniors. And we've seen that in the news every time that a company goes through a layoffs. People like to blame AI, but if it's not really the case. As I mentioned, even with Automates, we just ship more. It's not like we are ending contracts sooner. We just ship more, and it's to everyone's benefit.
Except for the late night hours, it just now the
Yeah.
days never end. I can't wait to get back into the saddle. I like that you mentioned trust because that's a big topic for 2026. I think, I probably abandoned three-quarters of the agents I built. Even when they were functioning properly, it just that level of automation was starting to be irritating, and so I left it. Now you can see, I think, where the trust building and where the tools for this agentic support in 2026 are going because everyone's going to the browser. I think just Claude today launched their kind of Chrome extension for the browser, which is to say that the predictive elements of AI tools is really what's going to be fantastic agentically because it can ask a question. So if it sees like if I do this email and then I go to Airtable, I go to Google Doc, I go to Wednesday or Monday or whatever, it can just say, hey, I see you're doing onboarding. Would you like me to complete that task? In some cases, I'd be like, yes. But in other cases, it's like, no, there's actually minute customization that even explaining it to you is going to slow me down and be annoying. So like, as we have this integration across browsers and across applications where it can predictively know what you're doing before you do it, and then kind of ask those follow-ups, that's what I'm really hoping to see with agentic support in 2026. But also, as far as human trust, um, there's they have a lot to overcome. I mean, now
Yeah.
there's AI girlfriends, there's deep fakes, there's synthetic voice clones, there's kind of AI generated persuasion across the board, and
Yeah.
who knows what Nigeria is going to come up with for scams, you know? No disrespect to
You
the
actually
beautiful
get
people of
get a
Nigeria.
video call from the Nigerian prince now.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be me, and it'll be calling my grandma and being like, "Oh, Ryan's in trouble." It's just
Yeah.
it's really scary. So, how do you feel like kind of AI and the people that are skeptical for good reason? Like, how do we as developers and businessmen, how do we build trust in the tools and the companies behind them?
I think transparency is key. So it's tricky. I actually read a few days ago a report on Google Ads. Some ads were generated using AI. Some ads were generated using AI and disclosed that AI generated. And some were just regular ads. And the AI generated ads generated about 30%, if I'm not mistaken, more click-throughs.
Yeah.
But once they disclosed that they're using AI, the click-throughs were actually 20% less than non-AI ads. So it really shows you about the trust issue and not necessarily the product itself.
Yeah. Understood.
So it's like, well, everyone's fine with your doctor going up to an encyclopedia, a medical encyclopedia that he has on the shelf behind him and just read through to help diagnose the system, but will be suspicious if he's going to use Google or AI for that. So it's really about trust, even though it's essentially the same tool. What we need to overcome is not the non-deterministic aspect of AI. That's fine. You want it to be more human, let's say, in that regard, but you want to trust that it's not lying to you and not hallucinating. And everybody can make mistakes, but you don't want it to just make shit up,
Yeah.
and even when they make stuff up, they're very persuasive about it. So that's the main thing that needs to be resolved, that level of trust. Um, I My own kind of experience is that I asked every time that I asked to ChatGPT or Claude that I use mostly for information, I always ask, please fact check and include sources. Otherwise, yeah. So it takes a few minutes longer to get an answer because they're going all over the web instead of just using statistics to give me an answer. But at least I'm able to trust the answer more. So I think that that's part of what needs to happen, that when they give you an answer, they need to tell you why they gave you this answer. It's just
Yeah.
not just, research says that, which research says? Just show me the research. Just give me a reference. So I think that that's the main issue. So once we solve that you can trust their data that they providing you with, and that you trust the output, that it's predictable enough that you can just trust it to work, I think that you're going to see it actually becoming a coworker. And if we look maybe 2-3 years down the line, I think that it's also in a lot of aspects, especially for knowledge workers, it's going to be kind of the end of UI. I actually mentioned this to someone a few days ago, that I think that UA for humans are gonna stick around for leisure purposes. Do online shopping. You want to browse. You want to go into forums and talk to people. That's gonna stay. But a lot of business applications is just gonna be a database and a chatbot. And when I say chatbot, the interface doesn't really matter. It could be a chat. It could be a voice. It could be a WhatsApp. And it will just generate the reports you need and do whatever it is that you need. If you think of enterprise, it says, computer, show me XYZ. And it just gets the data and shows you.
Yeah.
So the actual forms and usability, all that thing is gonna start to wind down over the next few years, I think.
Yeah, I would say that probably the most successful software product in the last 5 years was the Spotify Wrapped. At the end of the
Right.
year, you got to see everything you listen to, and everybody's adopted that, and it's so cool. Like, I would like to have a refrigerator wrapped, and they'd be like, Ryan, you ate 7,321 eggs this year. Good job. I was like, oh, my protein goals. Let's
Yep.
go. You know, I like your attention to like give me fact check this data. And
Yeah.
my favorite, from ChatGPT, they've improved it a little bit, but they would make up whole articles with URLs that went to 404
Yeah.
pages and everything. You're like, no, that's you made that up. It's kind
You
of fun.
completely made that up. Yeah. With
There-
code, I noticed that a very nice trick that I'm using is what's your confidence level in the solution that you just created? And it immediately says, you know what? Let me think about it. I'm only 70% sure. So
Oh
let's
man,
work to get to 100.
that's a good one. I'm going to use that. What's your confidence level in what you're telling me? You
Yeah,
know, I'm going to use that with my kids.
that's a good one. Yeah.
Nice. Ran, kind of wrapping up here. When you're thinking about 2026, what are you most excited for? And do you have any New Year's resolutions?
Ooh, so I'm most excited about seeing the change, not the incremental changes, but I'm looking for that iPhone moment in AI. For the one that says, you know what, we've improved incrementally and now it's going to change everything. And I don't know what that would look like. It will be some sort of, I think, of a life sidekick type of agent that has full control in full access to your data somehow privately. That was the hope that of what Apple should have done, and just helps you manage your life and connect to different sources and just frees your time. New Year's resolution. I wanna. I don't know, maybe a bulk up year. I've
Hey,
lost a lot of weight this year, so it's time to bulk up. So
yeah,
yeah,
I like it.
yeah,
Get out the deadlifts and some bench press.
yeah. I'll
Bulking
start
season.
slow, but eventually I have
Bulking
to
season
start somewhere.
best. It's like you eat steak and oatmeal and drink beer. And, lift like a lazy bear. I love it. Nice.
Yep,
Amazing.
sounds
Ran,
like a plan.
before we get out of here, I know the Make-A-Wish Foundation is near and dear to your heart. Do you have a special chapter or a shout out you'd like to make?
I think that these people are saints. To be honest, we had a personal experience in the family, and we've seen how happy they can make kids during tough times. So yeah, every good thing that I can wish upon those people is goes straight out of my heart to them.
They are the best. They are the absolute
Yeah.
best. Now, I know you've got some pretty big announcements coming shortly, so I suggest everybody go to muxi.org, muxi.org. That's the best
Yep.
place for them to learn about this.
Yeah, it is going to be very exciting. It's an open source project, going to be out anytime now, wrapping up the SDKs around it. And hopefully it will bring some sort of a revolution into developing agentic infrastructure.
Incredible. And then, of course, automaze.io, which is AUTOMAZE.io, which is technical co-founder and CTO as a service, where they can talk directly to you, Rand. Rand, what's the best place for people to connect with you personally online?
Personally, I'm on X. My at is Aroussi, AROUSSI. I'm quite active. Find me, DM me, follow me. I'll follow back. Yeah, we're going to have a blast.
Rand, this has been tremendous. I really appreciate the time and the conversation. I'm fired up for 2026. I think it might be bulking season for me too.
Let's hope so. Thank you very much, man. I really had a great time chatting about AI and with you. I mean, this has really been an experience.
Agreed. Loved it, man. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hey, founders, let me ask you this. Are you building with AI or getting left behind by it? If you're serious about scaling smarter, faster, and bolder, you need to check out aiforfounders.co. It's your go-to resource for cutting through the noise and actually using AI to grow your startup. Each week, AI for Founders drops a sharp, no-fluff newsletter, dives deep with expert guests on the podcast, and hosts monthly workshops where you can get your hands dirty with the real tools and strategies. Whether you're pre-seed or Series B and beyond, launching something new or just staying sharp, AI for Founders gives you the edge you need to win in 2025 and beyond. Hit aiforfounders.co to subscribe to the newsletter, tune into the podcast, and grab your spot in the next workshop. And it's all free. Build smarter, move faster, think bolder with AI for Founders. Now back to the show.